Welcome, everyone, to Starcaster Radio. I have Erica, Naomi, and Barbara, and this is Jules, and we just welcome you all as we create this sacred space and create our new earth reality. So we're going to start today with the Holy Cross activation. So you just want to take in a deep breath and just center yourself and just, take this time today to just really connect to our soul family as we raise the frequency of the planet. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathe in and out of the God particle in your heart. Breathe in and breathe out. Allow the frequency of your energy grid to expand into the energy grid of the new earth. Feel this expansion in your molecules as your energy spreads out through all space and time. With your eyes closed, touch the top of your head, saying aloud, I am that I am. Notice a spiral of energy opening into the new earth. It extends down through the crown to the root chakra. Touch your third eye, saying, I am moon. Bring the energy of the moon to your heart. Touch the heart and say, I am sun. As the moon, or the energy of God, and the sun merge as one, feel the frequency in your existence shift into the new earth. Touch the right shoulder and then the left, saying, I am spirit. Allow this energy to disintegrate any lower ego that is still existing. Feel the space of the sacred heart just above your physical heart. Feel it opening and expanding. Touch your root chakra and say, I am earth. Feel the frequency of the new earth fully integrate with your physical body, becoming one. Touch your sacred heart, saying, I am the God particle. I am one. I am one with God. I have entered the gateway. Feel your energy grid become one with the energy grid of the new earth. Your system clicks into a higher existence. Your molecules expand as you become light. You feel no pain or separation. Looking around you, you see others have made the journey also. Some have guided you here. Your heart feels as though it is existing as you. The frequency overwhelms you with love, a love that has no limitation. You are one with all existence. Allow the shift in frequency to fully integrate within you as you enter your new home. Welcome to the new earth. Wow, okay. So I always love that activation because it just, it was funny. Like we were talking last week about, entering the void or entering the blackness, the unknown, and how the blackness holds all, all the color. It basically holds everything except for light. And, this past week I had this journey of, my frequency was just going to such a high frequency that I was to a place where I had to make a choice. And the choice was that I continue to raise in that frequency and basically go full mystic or have to disengage from society because I was just so open that it was really hard to be just around other people in daily life. And what I realized is that, in just this existence that we're living in, that we always have choice. And it was the first time that I really realized that I had the choice of existing in both. And I've always known that, logically, that I had the choice of living in the third dimension or in these higher realms. But what I didn't realize is that, I could actually do both. I always, for some reason, thought it had to be one or the other. And now that I've made that choice, I've really shifted, and I feel like it's a lot to do with, light and dark. Like, we need them both. Like, they both are so beautiful and so relevant. And it was being able to use that analogy in just my daily life and having the choice of the balance between both worlds, and that both are important and both are relevant and both have value to my life. So that's kind of what I've been working on this week, and it's been really spectacular because, we really are creating our own reality. And what I realized is that instead of being in the third dimension and having to hold space for others in order to feel comfortable because I needed them to reach my frequency, what I realized is that even when I'm in the third dimension, I still can create my reality through my frequency and not have to hold space for others, and that I can have the same experience. And I guess what I'm saying is we both can have an experience that we're having together, but both have a different experience because of the frequencies that we're in. And it's not my responsibility to bring them to my frequency. It's just my responsibility to hold my own creation. So now I'm going to pass it on to you guys and let you take over. Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Well, I feel like they're the shatter of illusions. Like, part of learning how to choose between the third dimensional, fifth dimensional, and choosing to do the light and the darkness, knowing that we need both, is how we're shattering the illusion of what we think life is, shattering the illusion of what we think our vibration should be and what the frequency should be.
Yes, and I was getting the same basic feeling, is that by holding a place in both the higher vibration or higher frequency and the third dimensional frequency, it's like light and dark. We've got a juxtaposition of these two different frequencies, very different frequencies, and we're learning how they both have purpose, but we're also learning that neither one makes the choice for us. We make our own choice, and that is very powerful within itself.
Absolutely. I had someone ask me a question because I am working on this presentation where I've really had to go into the foundation of Infinite Gold and what its frequency is, and as I trace it, it goes into the frequency of eternal life, and and as I trace eternal light to its root, or eternal life to its root, it's actually, going into the seventh element of I don't exist. And, and I was like, well, what does that actually mean? And what it means is existing in unity consciousness or in oneness. And the person I was talking to asked, well, how do you live in that state of consciousness in the third dimension? And it was such a powerful question for me because the answer was, I don't know, because I've always felt as though when I lived in the third dimension that I had to lower my frequency or I had to hold space for to communicate. It's fine when I was out in the woods. It was very easy for me to live in that state of oneness. But when I would have interactions with other people, unless they were in my same frequency, it was very, very hard for me to stay in that unity consciousness. And so it was a really powerful thing for me to realize that it's not my responsibility to hold space. It's just, and that's when I started realizing, gosh, like, even in darkness, it's still a blank canvas. Like, we still get to create, but we're creating from the unknown. We're creating without light, and but everything is there. It's all meshed together. It's already unity consciousness. So it's like, I guess in some ways it totally shifted the way I view the third dimension, in that, okay, well, yeah, we're in the third dimension, but there's a big part of me that's not. And I get to use that part of me and create the third dimension in any way that I want to. And one of those ways that I'm discovering or playing with is staying in unity consciousness in the third dimension without the responsibility of having to have others have that experience as well.
Well, I think you made a good point where it's easy to do it in a forest, right? It's easy to do it when you're in isolation, or the monks that sit in temples for days and years just meditating. They can float in that dimension and not have to necessarily worry about being in a space where there's a lot of third dimensional thinking. So I think being able to be in unity consciousness here in the third dimension while interacting with society is a huge shift. And I think knowing the difference in that and being able to hold the space for yourself instead of for others and being able to operate now is a very powerful thing. Because a lot of times, like you said before, when you wanted to disconnect and go straight mystic, that's what a lot of enlightened folks do, because they can't handle the norms of society because it's not on their frequency. So I think a really awesome balance is to learn how to function now around others, but on a different level, on a different dimension, in a different frequency.
Absolutely.
Well said, Erica. Yes.
I almost feel like that's even harder too. It's like we're like, it's like the mystic in day-to-day life. It's much easier to hold a high frequency when you don't have interference. But so what we're being asked to is to hold that frequency in the chaos. And
yes,
oh my gosh, that's like so much harder.
It is. Well, that's why the monks go meditate in a temple and never come out. It's because they don't want to deal.
Yes, it's absolutely right. And I have always heard that the hardest thing to do in this dimension is to work in a city where you're involved with all these people, have children, have a husband. Dealing with all of those different energies is really you're on the fast track. If you can do that, you're on the fast track to evolve, because that is the most difficult thing to do in this dimension. And I can testify to that.
I mean, it really does become your spiritual practice. Like, I love this story. I can't remember where I heard this story, but I'm going to tell it because it's just so perfect for what we're talking about. So the story is there was this, I don't know if he was a monk, but he was a master teacher. He was a very high-up spiritual man. And he had an apprentice, and he asked his apprentice to go to his house and pick something up that they needed for ceremony later in the day. And so the man goes to the master's house, and his wife answers the door, and she's just awful. Like, she's so mean. And the guy was like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that this is my master's wife. She is just like horrible. And so he goes back to his master, and he's like, oh my gosh, how do you live with your wife? She's so mean. And I couldn't even believe how aggressive she was. And he said, she's my spiritual practice, was his answer. And I was like, wow, that is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is. And that also, I think, in that statement, it gives you understanding of that you're not being punished, that you just chose this path in order, if you take a mate on, let's say, that's aggressive or totally opposite from you, and you're learning to deal with that energy, and you're actually transforming that energy into a more positive energy, what more of a beautiful thing for a light being to do is to help elevate someone who is obviously not connected to the light. So I think that is one of the greatest services you can do.
Well, and I think it's important to realize that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we're brought down here to test other spiritual beings to get them to grow on a level that they had made with a soul contract before coming down to have this human experience. So every encounter that we have has a purpose. We may not see the light through the trees, but it very much has a purpose for growth and for understanding and for frequency and at the end of the day, love. And so I think a lot of times people get so frustrated with other people, or they even get frustrated with themselves because they're acting human. Well, it's normal to act human. We chose this so we would have that experience.
Right, absolutely. And you ask yourself sometime, what was I thinking when I chose this? Yeah. Well, I ask myself that all the time. What was I thinking?
And I love that part about us just being human, because it's not, we can live in a multidimensional life and have a very high vibe experience, but still have moments of, being human. And I think it's in those moments of when we struggle with what we're experiencing that makes the choice of choosing the higher road or the higher frequency even easier, because it's like when we step onto the platform of that higher frequency, we're very, very clear and about what experience we're not choosing. And, until then, we can it's just kind of more of an idea or a belief. But then once we have the experience and can move into the knowing of why we're choosing the higher frequency or choosing to create a different life, that it becomes that much more powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
Naomi, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, this whole conversation feels so good, and I feel like it's exactly what I needed, and it is so divine timing, and I just have so much gratitude, and I really feel the Council of Light sharing this beautiful frequency right now. Like my crown chakra is vibrating, my sacred heart is vibrating, and I just would love to take this opportunity to stand on the New Earth platform and just accept unity consciousness.
I love you so much.
And choose, I feel like even just saying I choose unity consciousness, I feel like that choice
I float.
Is so huge.
I'm literally just tearing up from this session. It's just so powerful and so beautiful.
Well, I looked down to see if I was floating because I just don't feel my body.
I choose unity consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an affirmation for us to understand that we are in control of everything we do and experience. And until we recognize that understanding, we feel victimized and all these other things, which is not true. So the more we can focus on the fact that we choose unity consciousness, we choose this understanding, then the more we'll be able to resonate at that frequency.
Well, and to me, it just reminds me of Jesus, because he chose the path. He chose every endearment that he went through was a choice. And so I think he led by example, by we choose, and it's okay. And we can accept his love.
Yes, absolutely. He was the way shower. And he was the entity that showed us how to exist in both worlds, both the higher frequency and the third dimensional reality, and how to deal with everyday lives, because that's what he did.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't just sit in a castle someplace and meditate. He walked out among the people and experienced the things they were experiencing and showed them how to be more positive about what they were doing and how to exist in this third dimensional reality. So, yeah, he's always been my inspiration.
I think that's like the perfect example also of how, you know, he was able to hold his frequency in a third dimensional reality, but in that, you know, there was moments where he felt, you know, the suffering of others, but he at the same time was creating his experience of that reality was very different than, let's say, somebody that he was healing until they accepted that frequency as being their own and were able to raise to his frequency and heal. But I guess it's like the perfect example that his reality was what he created in his own vision and his own frequency. And so two people could be having the same exact experience, but they're experiencing it in completely different ways. And that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. And I love that we brought in Jesus, because he's the perfect example of that is a possibility. And it's always in that choice of what am I experiencing right now, and holding that vision of spatialness or that unity. I guess what it does is it just kind of takes out the judgment of having a separate experience, because it's still the same experience. It's just what frequency you're experiencing it from.
And I feel as though the persecution is our ego. You know, our ego is the one that, you know, when we have the death of the ego, there's no more persecution for it. So it's on a different level for us as a human experience. You know, I don't feel like, you know, the second that we can choose that it doesn't have to be suffering in this frequency, and there doesn't need to be that disconnect of pain or victimization as others experience, you know, the second that we know that it doesn't have to be that way, takes us to that next level. Like that's the next level of Jesus.
Yes, absolutely. And I think he demonstrated that brilliantly, the way he interacted with the people. And, of course, all we have to go by on a third dimensional level is what it says in the Bible, which, of course, is somewhat distorted because it's been, you know, translated so many times. But yet you can still, by reading it, you can still get the spiritual essence of what he was trying to do and how he was trying to show us, you too can do these things. You just have to get past your ego. And I think that's the biggest challenge for me anyhow, is putting the ego in the back seat, because the ego wants to be driving. And as long as I allow that ego to drive me, I still am in the experience of victimization, anger, you know, whatever it is, fear mainly, of what happens to the physical body when I'm putting the emphasis on the wrong thing. So I have to have a constant reminder of who's in the driver's seat, who am I allowing to be in the driver's seat. I have the choice, and the power is actually mine, but I tend to give that power away without thinking about it, because the ego is so powerful as long as you allow it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I feel Jesus is with us right now, and can y'all
Me too.
can you feel your right shoulder? Like, do you feel a hand on the back of your right shoulder?
Well, when I said his name, I felt lifted. Like I felt like he just picked me up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like I got a big hug.
I feel that too.
I just felt like it was the familiar feeling of him being there always beside me. And sometimes I don't recognize that feeling because I'm so into my third dimensional game I'm playing. But reminding myself of that would be, in fact, I think it would be a really good thing to do on a regular basis. Is just first thing in the morning when you wake up or whenever you want to do it, just to remind yourself Jesus is there with you. The Christ Spirit is there with you, and he is going to guide you. And just when you get in some sort of a quandary in your life where you feel helpless or you feel sad or scared or whatever, that you will remember to draw upon that energy, and it will guide you into the light and show you the way.
So I just feel really compelled to ask Jesus, like, can I be one of your disciples? Like, I choose to be one of your disciples on earth.
I love that.
Yes. I do too. I feel like we just got anointed by him.
Yes. I just feel his energy, his loving energy, and that he is so happy that we have tuned in, so to speak, and asked for his guidance. I know I have many times in my life, but I don't think you can ask for it every day, all day long, because when you're in this space, you really do need some sort of a reminder and a helping hand to keep you on your path, because it is a difficult path, no doubt about it. Not everyone is successful in walking this path without a lot of pain and, trials and tribulations. So I feel like that because I have always drawn upon his energy throughout my life, I have had pretty well a blessed life. And I know it's because I have really been connected to that energy and put so much, and I don't know, I guess important for me, it's important. I grew up in a religious family, although as I grew up and matured, I knew that was a very kind of a shallow understanding of the whole thing, and that is when I started my journey when I was about, 12 years old, to starting to wonder and ask questions and want to know what was the truth of the matter. Why are we here? Where are we going? What is our purpose? Needless to say, I was a very inquisitive kid, but that always brought me back to the Christ energy, the energy that possessed the body of, or existed in the body of Jesus. So that's always been a forefront of my understanding.
I feel as though we're connecting the dots to the new earth.
Yes. Absolutely.
I think that, just part of following, the path of Jesus and really asking to be, a disciple it's really just, remaining open. Like I always talk about, I'm a channel of grace, and this grace is there to be of service to others, and and then putting it into a really just day-to-day way of living is is to listen and do, and it's just being really in tune with what messages are coming in, and and in trusting in that and doing it without feeling afraid or holding back or being so occupied or distracted that the message isn't received. And so I think that that's just such a really important part of, accepting this responsibility within ourselves of choosing to hold the light or to hold the gates open for others, and to choose to be a way shower, is to have the self-awareness and that inner guidance and trust, to where it can expand up into those other dimensions where we can fully communicate with the higher mind in a way that is going to assist others.
Yeah. Well said, Julie. So my question is, what would be the most important way for any one of us to keep ourselves focused on this pathway in our daily life? Does someone have an insight into that?
I think, like what I said, I think the biggest part of that is self-awareness. It's recognizing when our frequency is shifting, and then asking, what is either going on in my mind or in my environment where I have, basically disconnected at that point, either through thought forms or environments, because otherwise I feel like we're so connected that, when we're connected, we don't think about what it's like to be disconnected, because we're so fully in the moment and we're so fully in that frequency, we almost forget what it's like to be disconnected. So it's like recognizing when we're shifting into the disconnect, and and then realizing in that moment that, okay, I have this choice. What was my distraction? And do I need to be distracted by this? And is there a way for me to still hold my center and have this experience? And so I think it's just like, I know I preach this all the time, but it's frequency and consciousness. It's being conscious of when there's a frequency shift, and holding, the center, like holding, like returning to the Sacred Heart, and staying there long enough that you can still remain in a state of higher consciousness or higher frequency, that you can recreate or choose how you want to experience each moment. So it's just a self-awareness is like that. I feel like that's the biggest place of starting, is self-awareness and shifting consciousness.
Yeah. Just making the choice that that's the place you want to go and that's the place you want to stay, and then being aware when you're not there, bringing your consciousness awareness back to the place you choose to stay, wherever that is. In our busy lives, that's sometimes a very difficult thing to do. So we need to have, I guess, what we need to do is have our quiet moments where we either meditate or sit out in nature, or whatever you do, whatever is comfortable for you to do, to bring your awareness back to that still place where the God consciousness exists.
And I think that's perfect too, Barbara, because so many of us get so caught up in that you have to be busy, and you have to do, and I think that as high frequency beings, that it's so important to have our alone time and our time where we can, re-enter our sacred center and reconnect at a really deep level, so that we can hold that space when we're out just doing our daily life. And so that was one thing that I, for the first time, I kind of gave myself permission that it's okay to just tell people I need to be alone, and really honor that. And because I can't be my best self unless I have that time to recharge and reconnect to the highest frequency of my being. And I think that that's like a really, really important thing, is as part of that self-awareness, is to when when you realize that you need to have your moment to reconnect before you move forward.
I call it my reset button.
Yeah.
Reset button.
And in a lot of ways, I think a lot of times people are afraid to claim that hour for themselves to reconnect, reset, because they feel like, oh, I don't have an hour to spare. And I want to emphasize, it could take 5 minutes. You don't need to put a linear time on it. It can be nonlinear. It can just be 5 minutes of just a breath, enough to reset, reconnect, regroup, rejuvenate.
Yes. And sometimes the way I do it, too, is even sitting in my chair, all of a sudden I just zone out, and I don't know where I go. But it doesn't take very long, and I'm back, and I'm totally awake, and I can go on with my day, whatever it is I'm doing. It's just that short amount of time that my consciousness leaves my body and goes somewhere and recharges. And I can definitely feel the difference within that short period of time. And there's no way when that happens, I can't stop it. It just happens. So that's how I do it.
How would you guys feel about picking a time like 11:11, no matter what time zone anyone is on, and when we see 11:11 on the clock, we just say to ourselves, I exist in unity consciousness, and just breathe through that minute and know when we're awesome. Doing it, we are all together and we are making it stronger.
Yes, that sounds beautiful to me. I would love to do that.
Yeah, we started our call at 10:10.
Oh, did we?
Well, 10:10 there. That would have been
11 my
11
time, Pacific.
Here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that we're in 4 time zones now.
Well, and in Naomi, it would have been 1:11.
And I was 11:11.
Yeah.
Were you?
Cool.
I don't know what time this started. I can't see on my phone what time it was, but how funny. I guess it was the same time,
I like
right?
the 4. I love the 4 time zone.
I do.
How about that? Yeah. We're connecting from one shore to the other, you know, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And all the way in between.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's just all this energy is flowing from one side of our continent to the other, and making that connection, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, we're all holding the space for each time zone.
Yeah, right. And I hadn't thought about that before until you mentioned it. I think you mentioned it last week or something. Was that about that? But so, Erica, as far as this full moon goes, we talked about a little bit. Could you kind of talk a little bit about the full moon and how it relates to all of us right now? Yes.
So for those that aren't aware, the 15th, which is August 15th today, I think it was at like 5:13 in the morning, was the fullest energy of the full moon. And the August full moon of 2019 is the Sturgeon full moon, which takes place in the Aquarius sign. And so Aquarius is the sign for water. And so symbolically, it's going to provide breath, life, and spiritual food or energy to us, to the world. Linear, nonlinear, third dimension, fifth dimension. And so what Aquarius asks for us to do in this full moon is to wash away the past and to provide room for fresh starts, new beginnings, new chapters. And infamous for the full moon is that you have a 2-week period to purge, 2 weeks to get rid, so that when the new moon creates and comes in 2 weeks, then that's the time for the new beginnings. So this one is actually called the Sturgeon full moon, and so sturgeon are very, very strong fish. Sturgeon, for those that aren't aware, is a fish that can live up to 140 years. So what it's trying to tell us is that we are stronger than we think. We are more resilient than what we believe we are, and this is to offer hope so that we can make it through the remainder of 2019, because for a lot of us there's been some challenges. So to hold on to that energy of the full moon so that we can connect, we can reconnect, and we can accept our New Earth platform, our frequency, and our love.
Wow, that was beautiful.
So let us ride that wave of the full moon. Let us ride the wave of the New Earth energy. Let us wash away the fears. Let it wash away our pains. And let's just bring into this next couple weeks in a creation, in love, and, you know, in a frequency where we are all in unity consciousness.
Yes. Wow.
I love that. I think that's just like the perfect way to end. So if we were to have like a vision or an exercise that we all could kind of play with until next week around that, Erica, do you have like some sort of...
You know, I just feel like those, for us, that since we talked about reconnecting and resetting, for everyone, when you take a shower, let's let the water wash away our fears, our pains, our concerns, our third dimension anxieties. And then as we are finished bathing and washing away with the water, let it cleanse us. Let us bring in the new energy and the new frequency of unity consciousness.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, me too, because it's something that we all do. And
we all do.
It's a really symbolic, yes. We've got that time allotted for that. So that's perfect, yes.
Wow, that is so perfectly the perfect way to end. So I'm just going to hold my heart, and again, I'm going to choose unity consciousness.
I choose
to be a disciple of Jesus, and I am a channel of grace.
I choose unity consciousness.
I choose unity consciousness. And I'm a disciple of grace.
So beautiful. Well, thank you so much, ladies. And this was such a powerful session. And I am just sending all of you and all of you listening so much love as we create. I'm just getting chills all over as we keep creating this new Earth reality. It's so awesome.
Yes. Woo.